Hey there, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are going to be making some side dishes. I really like sharing these types of videos just because I feel like sometimes trying to think of something to go along with your meal is kind of frustrating, especially when you cook dinner every single night of the week. So I hope today's video gives you some good inspiration, but let's go ahead and get started and I will show you what I made. First up today, we're going to make these roasted Brussels sprouts in the oven. To begin, I'm just preheating my oven to 400 degrees, and then over to my cutting board I have this 1 pound bag of Brussels sprouts. I'm going to be using about half of this bag today. I started by removing any of the outer leaves that looked really dirty or just really beat up, and then I took my knife and cut those right off. I added the Brussels sprout into my little basket here, that way I could go wash them all when I was finished. After I washed those off and dried them as well, I went ahead and added them to a baking sheet and I cut each one in half. Once they were cut in half, I just took some avocado oil and added about a tablespoon of that on top. Then I lightly sprinkled these with garlic powder, pepper, salt, and just a touch of red pepper flakes. Since I was just making these for myself, I just used my hand to make sure all the seasonings and the oil completely covered these Brussels sprouts. I felt like there wasn't quite enough oil, so I just added a little bit more to make sure they wouldn't stick to my pan. As you go through these, make sure you flip them all flat side down, that way they can brown easier in the oven. I stuck these in my oven for right around 15 minutes, and this is what they looked like when they were all done. If you want to, you can sprinkle these with some Parmesan cheese and put them back in the oven, but I actually like to add mine to my plate first and then sprinkle it with some freshly shredded Parmesan cheese. Here is what my final plate looked like. These Brussels sprouts are amazing. My husband of course doesn't like them because he doesn't like vegetables in general. However, I absolutely love these, so if you're somebody that likes vegetables and Brussels sprouts, you should definitely try making these. I made these Brussels sprouts alongside some chicken that I will be sharing here very soon and some mashed potatoes. Next up, we are making this sweet potato and quinoa salad. To begin, I just went ahead and preheated my oven to 375 degrees, and then over to my cutting board I had 2 sweet potatoes. I went ahead and peeled those and then cubed them up into bite-sized pieces. After getting those all cut up, I went ahead and added them into a nice big bowl and added about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. To season up these sweet potatoes, I'm adding about a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. Once all of those were in there, I just took a spoon and mixed this up really well. Next, you will just add all of those sweet potatoes onto a baking sheet, and as you can see, I did add some extra olive oil onto the baking sheet just to ensure that they will not stick too badly. Spread them out in a nice even layer, and then these are going in the oven to bake for right around 20 minutes. While those are baking in the oven, I'm going to go ahead and chop up a little bit of red onion. I chopped up about half of a red onion, but I don't think I used the entire thing. You can use however much you'd like. Now we're going to go ahead and make the dressing. So into my little measuring cup here, I'm just going to add about 4 tablespoons of olive oil, 3 tablespoons of lime juice, a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of chili powder, and about 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. Give that a good mix together and then just set it aside until your sweet potatoes are ready. When your sweet potatoes are done, just be sure to check that they are nice and fork tender and then add them into a nice big bowl. For this recipe, you will also need about 2 cups of cooked quinoa. Then you can add in your red onion, and I actually gave this a little bit of a mix here, kind of to test whether or not I wanted to get a new bowl, and I actually did. I needed a bigger bowl than this. So once I switched it into a larger bowl, I went ahead and added in 1 can of drained and rinsed black beans, along with 1 can of drained corn. Now you can go ahead and add your dressing and give this a really good mix together to combine everything. I did go ahead and refrigerate this for about 30 minutes prior to eating on this night. And then I just had mine with a turkey burger. I ate mine without the bun, so I just have a turkey burger and cheese there with some sliced tomato and some sliced avocado. Let me tell you though, next time I make this, I would add some avocado in there because I actually ate that avocado there with it and it was so good. Next up, we're making some garlic smashed potatoes. This is one of our favorites around here. I first began by preheating my oven to 400 degrees, and then over onto my cutting board I had 1 bag of these baby Dutch yellow potatoes. I gave these a really good wash and then added them into some boiling water. You'll need to let these boil for about 10 to 15 minutes until you can easily pierce them with a fork. I went ahead and drained off the water and let those sit for a minute just to cool down a little bit. Next, into this little bowl I have about 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm adding about 1 teaspoon of salt in there, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of dried oregano and thyme, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of rosemary, a 1/4 teaspoon of sage, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of parsley. Go ahead and just melt that in the microwave for about 30 seconds and then set this aside for right now. Onto a baking sheet, I'm just going to go ahead and spray that down with some avocado spray to make sure that my potatoes do not stick. I went ahead and just poured those potatoes straight onto my baking sheet, and you will also need a glass for this. You'll just take the bottom of that glass and press down on each potato until they are about 1/4 of an inch thick. I actually ran out of room. I had about 5 extra potatoes I just had on the side, but that's okay. I went ahead and took that melted butter and spread that over all of those potatoes there, and then these went into my oven to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes until they were crispy on the bottom and around the edges. Here's what they look like on my plate when they were all done. I just added about 5 or so on there. They were all very crisp. If you end up eating these and you don't think that they are seasoned enough, you can always sprinkle some more seasonings on at the end. But for us personally, these were fantastic. I went ahead and served them with some breaded pork chops and some leftover quinoa salad. Next up, I was so excited to try this recipe. We're making Copycat Pizza Hut breadsticks. Into my stand mixer, I'm adding about 4 3/4 cups of bread flour. Then you'll add in 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast, 1½ teaspoons of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Then you'll add in 6 tablespoons of melted butter, along with 3/4 cups of water. Mine was right around 107 degrees. Same thing for the milk. I'm adding 1 cup of milk and it was about 107 degrees as well. I added my hook onto my mixer and started mixing that up. I turned this on a low speed and let this go for about 5 to 7 minutes until the dough all came together, and then I shaped it into this ball in the bottom of my mixing bowl. I went ahead and covered this with a rag and let this rise for about 1 hour until it had doubled in size. Now moving over to a baking sheet, I went ahead and sprayed this down pretty well with some avocado spray. On the actual recipe, I believe it says to use an 18 by 13 pan. However, mine was a 17 by 12, so just a little bit smaller. I went ahead and spread it out the best I could, but in the end, my breadsticks were a little bit thicker, and I think that was honestly just because my pan was a little bit too small. Now I'm just taking a pizza cutter and basically just going to make some indents on this. Adding these lines, you don't want to cut all the way through, just a very little bit. This will help in the end. You'll be able to pull these apart really easily. Now I just went ahead and covered these again and let them rise for another hour. After that hour was up, I went ahead and melted about 1.5 tablespoons of butter, and I just brushed that over top of all of the breadsticks. Now these are going to go into the oven to bake on 470 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes. Now into this bowl, we're going to go ahead and make the butter topping. I added in 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, with a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of basil, and 1 tablespoon of dried onion. I melted that in my microwave for about 30 seconds. This is what it looked like afterwards. And then once my breadsticks were done in the oven, I went ahead and pulled those out and topped it with this butter mixture. Over the top, I am just sprinkling some Parmesan cheese and a little bit of parsley, and then these are all ready to go. Here is what my finished breadsticks look like. As you can see, they are a little bit thicker than what Pizza Hut's are, but I really do think that was because my pan was a little small. I went ahead and just added some marinara into the center with a little bit of Parmesan cheese in it. And I have to say, I think these tasted really good. Me and my husband both really loved these. I actually made this alongside some pepperoni and cheese pizza this night, so these are perfect for a homemade pizza night. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I will have all of these recipes that I used down in the description box. Don't forget to leave me a flower down in the comments below if you did make it all the way through, and I will see you back here on Sunday. Bye!